Coming up, a step forward in the fight for fee transparency, Signature releases their price lists, mostly.
Plus, what has one blade and may or may not work that well, testing the gizmo that never really was, and get a look at how Continental Motors are made while at our fly-in.
Also, it's the place for Canard fans. We take you to Rough River. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
Celebrate 20 years of Sonex aircraft by building and flying your dream. Quick handling, fun and capable kit aircraft models to suit your flying passions. Get the best performance per dollar with Sonex aircraft.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haynes and Melissa Rudinger.
In a world where the price of everything is at your fingertips through an app or a web page, it's been maddening that you couldn't find out how much it was going to cost you to use some FBO facilities until you taxi in.
Well, in a quiet move last week, the world's largest FBO chain changed that, partially. Signature has started publishing some fees for piston engine aircraft. You can find it on their website, select the location, and scroll down to the Fuel and Services drop-down.
You know, it is nice to see movement on Signature's part, hopefully setting an example for others in the industry about transparency. Again, reminding everybody that 97% of our FBOs do a good job, take care of us day in and day out. But one of the things that I think is not flexible in my mind in terms of it should be obvious, we need to have transparency to know before you fly what those costs and fees are going to be. So it's a start, it is not an end yet.
Fees vary by location. A big Class Bravo airport like Baltimore, Washington, handling fees for a light single engine are about $49. Fly west to Frederick, though, outside of the Class Bravo, and the handling fee drops to $29. But you still have to call ahead to find out what parking, tie-down, security, or other possible fees there might be. And they'll only tell you over the phone how much fuel you have to purchase to get some fees waived.
To their credit, you know, they just opened up this site last week and started to have this there. I believe they need to populate it with overnight fees and other fees that are maybe even airport fees that are just pass-throughs. But all the fees that are included in flying to that airport and staying overnight at the airport on all types of general aviation airplanes is what I expect.
Signature says they want to make it easier for their customers to do business with them. You can read more of their response on our website. Meanwhile, it is a good start towards a full fee transparency.
It seems to me that in this day and age, transparency in pricing is a place that we expect everybody to consistently put up all the prices. It's a good start, but it's not a finish.
As Mark says, it is a good start, but there's a long way to go on this one. We've been working on it for a long time, as you know. But we're glad to see Signature at least acknowledging that there's been a problem and putting one small step forward.
Yes, we'll take the progress, and it seems like a common sense thing to do.
It really does. It's bigger than Oshkosh in the Canard world. The Rough River Canard Fly-In brings together all things rattan and those who love them. Dozens of the unusual but efficient home builds are home now after spending the weekend together in Kentucky. The event has been happening for decades. Rough River Dam State Resort Park is the host airport. Provides a perfect meeting spot for the composite crowd. Bobby Ibrahim flew his Velocity up from Alabama for the event.
This is my 4th year here, and it's just a great time for all the Canard airplanes to get together and hang out and get to enjoy each other's airplanes, lifestyle, and company.
Though very informal, the event offers some tech talk by experts. We'll have more on the fly-in and Rough River Dam State Resort Park in a future edition of the show.
Canard composite aircraft are known for their speed, efficiency, and strength, but when it comes to build time compared with other home-built aircraft, they fall flat. Some builders take 5,000 hours and 20 years to complete theirs. One group thinks that is keeping younger people from being interested in building the designs. Nate Mullins of 323 Composites is hoping to attract younger builders to Canards. He's developing quick-build component kits for several of the classic Canard designs.
Go from a plans-built 1970s era aircraft, bringing it into the 21st century with pre-molded parts, modifications that we've worked on over the last 4 decades, bringing those to the table so that we have a quick-build composite and the main goal being affordability.
Mullins said the first design is the quickie, but he looks to add more designs in the future.
No more Mr. Nice Guy, at least when it comes to drone pilots. Over the last few years, the FAA has adopted a policy that safety and regulation compliance are best enhanced by education, not heavy-handed enforcement actions. So if you inadvertently bust a rule, more likely than not, you'll get a talking to, maybe some remedial training. But the feds have had it with some drone pilots. A new policy instructs FAA inspectors to get tough on any drone pilot who interferes with firefighting, medical flights, or law enforcement efforts. Fly a drone that interferes with some first responders, you'll get more than a severe talking to, including a fine of up to $20,000.
A Russian company claims it has the first FAA-approved flying motorcycle. Actually, what the FAA says is that the Hover 1 complies with Part 103 rules for an ultralight. Ultralights don't require aircraft certification or a pilot's license. The HoverSurf Hoverbike S3 costs $150,000, a $10,000 deposit. We'll get them started on building one for you. Coming up, flying out to see how Continental Motors are made.
And putting an antique one-bladed prop to the test. AOPA Live this week continues.
You always knew it was your perfect airplane. Now it can have the perfect panel. Garmin G500 TXI and Garmin G600 TXI, the next generation of flight displays.
Welcome back. The AOPA Fly-In to Gulf Shores, presented by the Alabama Department of Transportation Aeronautics Bureau, is coming up. We hope you'll join us October 26 and 27 for some great fun along the Gulf Coast. And while you're there are several great opportunities to participate in fly-outs, one of which will let you get intimately familiar with how aircraft engines are made. AOPA Live's Paul Harrop explains.
Many of us have probably flown behind a Continental like the 0300 and this beautiful Cessna 170B, but I bet far fewer of us have seen what goes into making these engines. Well, you'll have that chance in just a few weeks.
So this is where it all comes together.
Literally. This is the engine assembly facility inside Continental Motors.
They bring it all together on a tray into this room and they put it together.
There's much more to the tour. You'll get to see
cylinders put together. You'll see piece parts. You'll see nuts and bolts and brackets. You'll see crankcases. You will see the steel shop.
But just like the airplanes they power, it's the people that give them life. There's a highly skilled workforce you'll see in action, people like Janice Kyle.
Well, you'll get a feel for how much quality goes into the engine, the teamwork it takes to build this engine, the time and effort our team members put into building the engines to make sure it's exactly what it needs to be before it leaves out of this door and your family, your friends, your co-workers are behind the engine flying in the air.
It is a fascinating tour. The folks at Continental are willing to answer even some of the most technical questions you may have. I learned a lot during my time at the factory, and I'm sure you'll do the same if you choose to come along. It's a beautiful flight, just a quick hop across Mobile Bay from the Gulf Shores Fly-In. I hope you'll consider tagging along. During this flyout, you'll also get to take a peek inside the Airbus factory assembly area. That's going to be fascinating as well. I hope you will come with us. Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
Thanks, Paul. There are a few things to note about the tour. They're open only to U.S. citizens. Proof of citizenship is required, as are long pants and closed-toed shoes. Photos, they're not permitted. There is a charge of $40 for the tour, but that's to cover lunch and ground transportation. Find more information on our Fly-In website.
And before we get to Gulf Shores, we have our fly-in in Carbondale, Illinois this weekend, presented by Southern Illinois University Aviation. If you're flying to Carbondale, don't forget to review the pilot information packet. There's also a helpful video that shows the arrival procedures. The weather forecast is looking ideal for a fly-in, so we hope to see many of you there.
You've heard us say it many times, check NOTAMs. Well, last week, the National Transportation Safety Board had some thoughts on that.
Boy, the NOTAM system is really messed up. I can tell you that right now. They're just a bunch of garbage that nobody pays any attention to.
Well, that's pretty harsh. The NTSB hearing was on the Air Canada flight that almost landed on a taxiway at San Francisco International last July. The crew was expecting to see two parallel runways, even though there was a NOTAM that the left runway was closed. In its probable cause statement, the NTSB said the crew misidentified the taxiway as a runway 28 right, in part because of a, quote, ineffective review of NOTAMs. But several board members acknowledged what GA pilots know all too well.
Just pages and pages and pages of NOTAMs, including birds in the vicinity of the airport. And you ask me, when are birds ever not in the vicinity of an airport? If you were to read them, every one of them, you would spend at least 20 minutes going through the NOTAMs.
Operating, even in a light airplane, we just get pages and pages and pages of irrelevant material. The important stuff gets buried.
The NTSB recommended that ways be found to present flight information in a way that, quote, optimizes pilot review and retention of relevant information. So do you think the chairman is fired up about this?
He is. I'd say the criticism is fair to a degree. However, over the past couple of years, we've made some progress. There is something called NOTAM Search, which is an FAA website. Just Google it. And you can parse NOTAMs in NOTAM Search. And of course, the third-party vendors also provide ways to parse NOTAMs, and we continue to work on improving the system.
There's lots of opportunity there. But hey, meanwhile, Congress is directing the FAA to improve the NOTAM system. That's part of the new 5-year FAA reauthorization bill the Senate approved this week.
It strengthens one area, the notice to airmen. That's called NOTAMs, N-O-T-A-M-S. But if you single out general aviation into pilots, it's really really a big, major deal. The legislation needed investments in our national airport infrastructure, and it supports the general aviation community.
It is oftentimes easy to believe the news reporting on how the Senate is broken and bipartisanship is dead. But then you work with your colleagues, both Democrats and Republicans, from the House and the Senate on something like the FAA Reauthorization Act, which we just passed, and you are reminded that we can still come together and get things done for the American people. The bill that we just overwhelmingly passed and sent to the President's desk is the longest FAA reauthorization since the 1980s, and it will improve our aviation system for travelers, manufacturers, and innovators alike.
The bill passed by an overwhelming majority, 93-6. It now goes to President Trump for his signature.
Maybe you've heard of a one-bladed prop. Maybe you've heard they are allegedly more efficient. Not a lot is known about them because they never really took off as an idea. One group of pilots set out to discover the truth about this old novelty. AOPA's Mike Collins has the story.
Good friends of the late Gene Briner, a Pennsylvania pilot, mechanic, and inspector, have come to share his fascination with an aeronautical oddity, the Everell one-blade propeller.
The original got broken, and we made a new one. And we did the machine work to put the one on that we've been using. But we sort of proved the fact that it doesn't do what it's supposed to. I'm not convinced of it anyway. The main thing I found out was that it only kills 50% of the bugs of a regular propeller. So if that's the object to kill bugs, well, then it's not good at that either.
An Everell and a conventional two-blade Sensenich prop were flown on the same Taylor Cub, and the Everell's performance came up short.
It was noticeably slower on acceleration, slower on climb out. I pushed the power up, it spun real fast, but the airplane just didn't launch forward like it does with the two-bladed prop. Other than that, you really can't tell too much difference.
A scale was used to measure each prop at the same RPM, and the Everell pulled about 10 pounds less than the conventional propeller.
It's an expensive deal. Like you said, in 1937, you could buy a Sensenich two-bladed propeller for like $27, and these sold for like $265. And plus the fact it's never in balance, depending on the weather. You have to adjust it all the time. It's a pain in the butt, and I can see why there's not a lot of them.
Sounds like a bad idea all around.
Well, asked and answered, right? It's we've always heard that they're more efficient, but apparently not.
Plus, it just looks weird.
It does. Interesting what they've done.
Well, that's it for us this week. We'll see you again next time.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on our program. Send us a note. The address is aopalive@aopa.org.
The smoke is on. He's giving everything that he's got. Oh, pilot it! He's there!
The Red Bull Air Race World Championship returns to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, October 6th and 7th. Tickets now on sale.